Guys, Kevin for Better Call Saul, Season 2, Episode 3, Amarillo, and I was really looking forward to this episode. This season, like I said, has been really great, especially last week's episode. Last week was great, and this episode was very similar to last week's, but different as well, because Jimmy really, you can tell, is jeopardizing his job, and if he keeps fucking up like this, he definitely, I think, could end up getting fired. We'll have to see. Let's just get into this episode, though, because there's a lot that happened, and I really did love this one. It was funny at points. It had two really compelling plots, and let's just get into it. So, we see Jimmy, he's sporting his Matlock suit and a white cowboy hat to match. He's in Amarillo, where he's paid off to a bus driver to fake a breakdown, which, is pretty crazy, but the driver's retained to tinker with the engine, and Jimmy boards the bus full of residents of a local sandpiper assisted living community, and he seeks out Alma May or Berno, and I love the way that the scene was done, where he's like, do you want to be known as Alma May, or Aunt Alma May, or Grandma Alma May? I thought that was pretty funny. So, Mrs. Urbano responded to one of Davis and Main's mailers about the class action case against Sandpiper, but Jimmy has been able to get into the facility to chat with her. He also knows that the ears of her fellow Sandpiper Anns will perk up when he tells her that she may have been overcharged by the company, and by the time the driver boards the bus and gets the seniors to their lunch stop at Burry's Homestyle Buffet, Jimmy's charms have made his trip a fruitful one, and basically, you can see that she talks about nothing makes her sadder than to see people of the greatest generation, people like his own Nana and Bobo getting overcharged by some great big company, even if it was an accident, he tells them, signing up 24 new clients for Davis and Maine before he heads back to the ABQ. And that's pretty much what he does this entire episode. He's trying to get more clients to Davis and Maine, because obviously they're not doing really as well as they want to, and Jimmy's trying to do it on his own. The problem is that he can't really do it on his own. We'll get into that, though, because it's very interesting. I really like the way this opening was done, though. The way that he just won her over is just by calling her by different names. I thought it was very funny. Definitely really enjoyed that opening, and I always love when Jimmy kind of negotiates with his clients. It's a very funny scene. So in a meeting at the HHM offices, Cliff calls out Jimmy's success in procuring the new clients in Texas, and everyone is thrilled except Chuck, and this was Jimmy's job. But Chuck is not happy. He wants to know how Jimmy turned one response card into 24 clients, because he's suspicious of slipping Jimmy and clearly looking to interrupt his little brother's hot streak. So he tells Hamlin, Cliff, and the rest of the class action team that opposing counsel might conclude there has been some sussulation, a disparable offense in play when they see the difference in those numbers. Which, yeah, there was. I mean, Jimmy did have the bus driver fake a breakdown, so you can tell that Chuck is definitely out to get Jimmy, and Jimmy is still very shaken by Chuck being there, obviously. He recovers in time to say it's all the result of gossip among the Sandpiper residents, and he asks if there's any surprise they want to speak with a guy who is there to show them that they may have money coming their way, and he says, I gotta tell you, with all that in mind, I should have done better, and the rest of the room is satisfied with that explanation, but Chuck is not too pleased with the egg on his face. He tries to recover the price of excellence is vigilance, he tells everyone, but Jimmy is once again charmed his way out of a potential disaster. He just has this charm to him that he's able to win over so many people, and Chuck is, I think, is starting to realize that he can't really beat Jimmy, and you know Chuck really doesn't see Jimmy as a lawyer. That's the thing. Chuck doesn't see Jimmy as a lawyer. He is an actual lawyer, and he thinks Jimmy just is a negotiable lawyer that's not really a real lawyer, and he clearly doesn't like the way that Jimmy is doing things. You can totally understand that, and that's why Chuck is upset with what Jimmy's doing, because, you know, like I said, he's not really a real lawyer. So everything seems to be going well, except with Kim, because she moves her feet when Jimmy tries to play footsie under the table, prompting him to speak up and tell everyone he understands Chuck's concerns, and will find another way to sign him new clients, and Cliff tells him that he's in charge of client outreach, so basically go forward. And after me, Jimmy tries to charm his way past Kim's questions about how he really signed on the Amarillo clients, but she spells things out for him again. You know, she says that she believes in him, but she makes her beliefs known to them, and now everything he does reflects back on her with Hamlin, and she says that she talked him into that she talked Hamlin into going out on a limb for him, and that this was all basically done because of her, which is very interesting. We find out, you know, she says, that they both know that he can do this job, but please, he just has to do it the right way, because he's not doing it the right way, and she knows what he did last week, that he lied and created that story for Pryce and everything that wasn't true. So she knows about that, and now she knows that he is probably still lying and things like that. And now that we know that she was the one that basically told Hamlin to give him the position because, well, she knew he'd be good at it, she's still very worried, and it's very interesting. And the thing that sucks is that you want these two together, but you know they're not going to stay together. You know the worst is coming for Jimmy and Kim, which really sucks. I really do like this relationship, but the worst is definitely coming for this relationship. You can definitely tell. So, during a visit to his granddaughter, Kaylee, and daughter-in-law, Stacey, Stacey accepts cash from Mike. She tells him that she's worried about gunshots she keeps hearing during the night, and she called the cops, and she tells him, but when they arrive, they found nothing. So Mike offers to camp out on her couch to keep her and Kaylee safe, but she refuses. So Mike parks his car outside Stacey's house and keeps watch all night, because obviously he wants to know if there are gunshots outside, because if there are, he's ready to take them on. And I thought this was very smart of Mike to do, with a pimento sandwich and a baseball game on the radio. And in the middle of the night, he hears a noise that sounds like gunshots, and he takes his gun out of the glove compartment. And as the noise grows closer, he sees the source, a station wagon driver delivering newspapers, the thump of the papers hitting the ground, and back in the good old days when newspapers were just that thick is what Stacey has been hearing. And Mike concludes, and after staying up all night, he goes off to work at a parking lot, and Stacey none the wiser about his recon, because it really has nothing to do with gunshots, and he knows that, and he feels, of course he doesn't think that Stacey's stupid for thinking this, but Stacey obviously thought that this was bigger of a problem than it was. It's clearly not a gunshot, but there's more. We'll get into this a little bit later, but then we see this is when the episode really starts to get great, because Jimmy is basically wants to do whatever he can to make Davis and Maine known. He's very creative, and he does come up with another plan to attract Sandpiper clients, because they're not attracting the clients that they want, and basically he gives this idea to Cliff that one of the things that all old people seem, all the elderly people, the people they need Sandpiper clients for, at 3 o'clock seem to watch is Murder, She Wrote, and yeah, that's true. I mean, I have a grandmother that watches Murder, She Wrote, and, it's on all the time at, 3 o'clock, and he says that when Murder, She Wrote is on, he wants to make a TV commercial, and he pitched the idea to Cliff, who's in a hurry to leave the office. The boss doesn't say no, but he is very enthusiastic about the idea. He says, you know what, we've done this before. He tells him that, they made a TV ad once, and that he's willing to discuss it the next week, and, that he thinks it's a good idea, that maybe they should make a TV commercial. However, Jimmy, of course, is very stubborn, and he doesn't really do what he's asked. He basically reads this as, alright, let's go make a commercial. He does it on his own without Cliff's approval, because remember, Cliff never said yes. And to Jimmy, he did say yes, but he didn't actually say the words, okay, yes, you can make this commercial. He was just interested in the idea. He said, oh, that's kind of a good idea, maybe we should do that. Okay, maybe we'll do that. That's what he said. He didn't actually say that we're gonna, he didn't actually say, all right, you can make the commercial. He just said, that sounds interesting. So he does decide to make the commercial. He views a Davis and Maine's previous ad and declaring it showmanship free, and it's a very depressing ad. I believe it was for, it looked like one of those infomercials that's, for bad, diseases or something, and basically he hires a pair of film students to help make his vision a reality, and he goes to the home of his client, Mrs. Strauss. We remember Mrs. Strauss, she was the owner of the Alpine Shepherd Boy Hummel figurine from Season 1, which I thought was kind of cool, the way they did that, the way they connected Season 1, things like that. I thought that was cool for the commercial setting, and Mrs. Strauss is also starring as the victim of the assisted living facility scam in Jimmy's vision. So basically, that's the idea of the commercial, that she is basically scammed from living and things like that. And as she descends the stairway via her motor-sized stair lift, she announces that she's ready for a close-up, and the commercial is very effective, and despite the sometimes questionable choice of the man who will someday, of course, select his wardrobe, when Jimmy shows it to Kim, she's very impressed, and he shows her right away. He basically sets up the whole thing, but again, remember, he didn't get Cliff's approval, and basically she's telling him it looks professional, and he assures her that it's American Bar Association compliment too, and I like seeing Jimmy put together this commercial. It was actually really fun to watch. I mean, definitely I really enjoyed it, and Kim's really happy for him, but again, Kim doesn't know that Cliff didn't give the okay. You know, she thinks that Cliff did give the okay, which Steven says, did Cliff really give you the okay? I can't believe that he did, but she's under the impression that he did, which of course he didn't. And the next day at the office, he goes to Cliff's office to talk, but hears him playing his guitar, turns away, goes back to his office, gets the number for the TV station in Colorado Springs, and asks his assistant Omar when the last FedEx is going out. And basically, Jimmy bought ad time, is shipping a videotape of the commercial to the station, and on the day the commercial runs, during the first ad break in the afternoon airing of Murder, She Wrote, Jimmy nervously waits at the office for calls to come in, because obviously the big idea here is to get Sam Piper to be more popular. He's waiting for calls, and they don't come in. There doesn't seem to be calls coming in here. For a few minutes, the phones soon light up with requests for more info, and he thinks he's made a good call until, he thinks everything seems to be okay. But then he gets a call from Cliff, and this is when things get really crazy, because remember, Cliff never gave him the okay. So basically, Jimmy and Kim, they're watching a movie at the apartment, which I like Jimmy and Kim just going back and forth to this movie. I thought that was pretty funny, which the movie they were watching was Ice Station Zebra, and Jimmy mentions Howard Hughes giving the movie a good review. Just a really fun scene overall. I do like these two together. The problem is they can't really be together, because of situations like this. We see they're watching movies at apartment when Cliff calls, and he's very angry. He doesn't even say hello. Like, he says, you ran a commercial, and it's obvious why he's pissed. I mean, again, he did not give the okay to Jimmy to do this. Jimmy just assumed he could do this, which he should not have assumed. And Jimmy says, to be fair, you did tell me client outreach was my department, and this only angers Cliff more. And basically, I like what Cliff says here, that Hamlin told him that he was a little eccentric, and he didn't tell him that he was a goddamn arsonist, and he demands Jimmy show up at the office the next morning at 8 a.m., ready to show the commercial to the partners at the firm. And Kim, meanwhile, thinks Cliff was calling a heap more praise upon Jimmy, and Jimmy lets her think that before asking what he missed in the movie they're watching, he asked anything blow up yet. And to Kim, she doesn't really think anything. She doesn't think that, he did this, without Cliff's authorization and did anything wrong here. She thinks that he just did the right thing. She thinks that he just made a commercial. She doesn't really think anything of it. And that's what's bad about this relationship. He's not being honest with her. And it sucks because I really do like Jimmy and Kim. The problem is he's just not really being honest with her here. And I like these two together. I hope that things work out for them. But right now, like I said, he's just not being honest, and honesty is one of the most important components of a relationship. And, he screwed up last week, he screwed up again here, and now he has to show this commercial to the rest of his work, and we'll have to see if that works. So, back to Mike. So, really interesting stuff with Jimmy. Let's get back to Mike, though, because this goes in a really interesting direction. We see, as soon as he gets to his job, though, he gets a frantic call from Stacey, because, of course, he thought that it was just papers that he was hearing, but he speeds off to her house, and when he gets out of his car, she immediately points to a nick on the corner of her house. It wasn't there before, she insists, and she heard gunshots again the previous night. And Mike, having witnessed the noise, gently suggests maybe that she dreamt it, and that makes her even more hysterical. And basically, he tells her straight out, look, we're getting you and Kaylee out of the house, end of story. There's nothing more to it. We're going to get you two out of the house, and it's clearly not safe. So he does realize, though, that it's going to require more. That's going to require more cash than either of the Ehrmantrauts currently possess, though. So Mike pays a visit to his veterinarian friend, asking for any well-paying side hustles he may know about. And the vet says he knows a loan shark, but Mike's not into breaking legs. He takes a $200 bodyguard job, but the vet tells him that you want next level pay, you gotta do next level work. And the vet calls Mike later with good news. Depending on how you look at it, someone has a next level job and is willing to pay serious money and has specifically requested Mike. And Mike takes a meeting with this new client, who turns out to be Nacho, and Nacho tells him that he's got a problem and he can't solve it himself. And Mike asks what the problem is, if it's a who or what, and when Nacho says there's a guy, I need him to go away, and I'm pretty sure that he's talking about Pryce. As we know, Pryce really isn't doing anything for him. I'm thinking Pryce is the person that he wants to get rid of, and Mike's gonna have to get rid of him. So that's basically how this episode ends. What a great episode. I really love this episode overall. I mean, you really see that Jimmy and Mike are kind of in the same situation. They're trying to do things on their own, and they can't really, Jimmy's trying to help out his company, Mike's trying to help out his family, but there are consequences for what they do, and I like seeing that. And this show is very realistic in that way. The thing that sucks with Jimmy is that he does have good intentions, but he just didn't get through to his boss. Like, his boss didn't tell him you could make this commercial. Had his boss tell him that, this would be a completely different situation. That wouldn't have happened that wouldn't have happened the way it did. It would have played out completely differently. The thing that sucks is now Kim doesn't know that Jimmy is lying to her. She doesn't know that he didn't have approval to make this commercial, and it's going to end up really bad for the both of them, especially if Kim has to be in the room when Jimmy presents the commercial. It's going to end up really bad for them, definitely. So, they're doomed, definitely. It really sucks, because I like Jimmy and Kim, but we just know that Jimmy screws up way too many times, and Kim knows what he did last week, and she's forgiven him for that clearly, but if she realizes that he did it again, I don't think she's going to be as forgiving this time, unfortunately, which sucks, because I really, like I said, like Jimmy and Kim together, and I do want them to stay together. But Jimmy definitely is going to jeopardize his job with Cliff. Is Cliff going to enjoy the commercial? I mean, we don't even know if Cliff really liked the commercial. We don't know if he didn't see the commercial, so maybe this could end up well. I don't really know. We'll have to see what happens there. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with the commercial and if Cliff does like it and how Kim's going to react to it when she realizes what Jimmy really did. We'll have to see what happens with that. Chuck clearly is trying to jeopardize Jimmy's job. You can tell he wants to. He doesn't trust Jimmy, and it's understandable. Jimmy really isn't doing what he's told, and he's doing what he wants to do, and I can tell why Chuck wants to ruin things for him. That's perfectly understandable. I mean, Jimmy isn't the most trustworthy guy. That's just how he's always been, and I understand why Chuck doesn't really trust him right now. I totally understand that. What's going on with Nacho? Who does Nacho want to get rid of? We'll have to see what's going on there. I think Nacho does want to get rid of Pryce. I think that's what that whole thing's about. Mike's going to try to get rid of him. We'll have to see what's going on with that. And then Kaylee and Stacey, obviously, they're not safe in the house. Is Mike going to be able to get them out of there? I mean, like we know, he doesn't have enough money. He now has this job as a bodyguard, but you got to work from the bottom and then work you got to start from the bottom, work your way up to the top. So we'll have to see if Mike's able to get them out of the house. He's promising he can. We'll have to see what happens there. But overall, guys, amazing episode. Really loving this season. Let me know what you guys saw this episode, and we'll see you guys up next to which will be for the season of the Muppets, because I finished it, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.